welcome to the GeekCast. This week we're going to be talking about Suicide Squad and what my thoughts are on the DCEU and where they're at right now. So, I wanted to say firsthand, I enjoyed this movie more than a lot of people did. You know, there's been people who've gone up to me and they said, this movie was absolutely terrible and there was nothing good about it, and this movie, I wasted my $13. And I'm just wondering, did they go see the same movie that I did? Now, there are problems with this movie, and I'm not going to be a fanboy. And I'm actually more of a Marvel fan than a DC fan. But I did enjoy this movie quite a bit, and I went and saw it 3 times. A total of 3 times, just to make sure that, you know, I didn't miss anything. And I really did enjoy this movie overall. And I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the... I hated the villain. I enjoyed the action sequences, but at the same time, it had too much CGI at some points, and I know that David Ayer was trying not to have as much CGI, but he kind of failed at some points, especially with Enchantress. But the thing is, this isn't the first superhero movie I've seen with terrible villains that has been an enjoyable movie. I mean, let's look back. Iron Man 2, people hated it. It had its flaws, but at the same time, a lot of people enjoyed it. But what villain did it have? Whiplash and Justin Hammer, both not interesting. Let's look at Ant-Man. They had Mantis, or not Mantis. I can't believe I forgot his name. I forgot. You see, that's how bad the villain was. I do remember what he looked like and everything, but the villain from Ant-Man, not a very good villain, not very well developed. Obadiah Stane was okay, but he wasn't nearly as good as he should have been for Iron Man 1. Let's look at Captain America Winter Soldier. Red Skull, very one-dimensional. Or Captain America, one-dimensional. Thor, Loki, one-dimensional. Or not Loki. I meant to say... well, I guess Loki was the villain. Loki is one of the one exception. But, you know, it's not the first movie. My point is, it's not the first movie where there's been a bad central villain. It's a movie that it follows trends that superhero movies have followed. Bad main villain, good protagonist, and an entertaining movie overall. Maybe even if the plot wasn't consistent. I will say the editing in this movie was awful. Like, it seemed choppy how it went from one scene to another. And I think it's like they recorded a ton of material and then they cut it up and pieced it together. It just didn't work for me. Like I said, Enchantress was a terrible villain. And her brother was terrible, and their CGI at some points was cringeworthy. But let's talk about the good, because I don't hear the good being talked about when it comes to Suicide Squad. Critics just throw it under the bus. They don't mention anything that was good about this movie, and they just give it terrible reviews. And it's not because they're paid off, but it's because a lot of times critics, they're supposed to focus on the bad, because think about it, they're called critics. They're supposed to be critical. They focus on the bad. But that doesn't mean that there isn't good at this movie. So let's talk about the good things. Well, Will Smith's Deadshot, for one. Let's go through the characters. Will Smith's Deadshot. Fantastic character. You cared about Deadshot. You cared about his story. You cared about him and his daughter's relationship. And he was one of the best things about this movie. His action sequences were cool. And everything about the character, he was well-rounded and he was interesting. Margaret Robbie's Harley Quinn, same thing. Well-rounded, perfectly cast, and you cared about the character. Amanda Waller, Viola Davis, killed it. I watched Arrow, and the actress who plays Amanda Waller on that movie killed it as well. And so when I went into this movie, seeing Viola Davis, I didn't know what to expect, but she absolutely killed it as Amanda Waller. I believe that Jared Leto, I liked his Joker, but I can't judge him too seriously because he wasn't in it as much. I enjoyed seeing Captain Boomerang as well. I did enjoy Captain Boomerang. Katana was terrible. Katana was terribly cast, and she was one of the only protagonists that I really, really hated. I just really hated her. Katana in Arrow, so much better cast, played by so much better of an actress. And I can't tell you her name right off the bat, but she was way better cast. Jay Hernandez's Diablo. He was on point. He was perfectly cast, and I cared about his character as well. Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman, not a very good character. Didn't feel for him at all. It was terrible. Killer Croc was cool, but he was sort of just the muscle, and I feel like he was underused, and some of his dialogue was bad because you couldn't understand what he was saying because they didn't use CGI, they used prosthetics, and I understand why they did that, but at the same time they should have tried to fix some things a little bit. I do think Captain Boomerang was great, and this whole movie, it was entertaining though. That's what I want to drive home, with this podcast. It had its flaws. I went over those, but it had so many great characters. It was just like, but the problem is, it's like you get a ton of good characters, you throw them into a movie, and you poorly edit the movie, and you're not going to get a 100% experience. But overall, as a Marvel fan, and a big Marvel fan, going into a DC movie, I enjoyed this movie. And I don't want people to be scared of watching this movie and saying they enjoyed it, because really, it was like a guilty pleasure for me, and I really did support it. And after seeing it 3 times, I can tell you I enjoyed a 4th time, and I'll probably get it on Blu-ray. But it's a interesting thing to see though how the DCEU is going to be different now after Suicide Squad. Terrible critic reviews, but amazing reviews from fans, diehard fans who probably rate it higher than it should get. And hopefully the DCEU reacts to this and they get movies that aren't just hodgepodge together, even if they have good characters and have good points to them. Hopefully the DCEU learns that you can't build a franchise from the bottom up, and learns that, okay, we'll have team movies, we'll have a Suicide Squad too, but we'll have it after we have individual movies for all these characters. And maybe, I'm hoping the DCEU, especially with the upcoming Batman movie and Justice League movie, has a good central villain. Don't follow what Marvel's footsteps. Have good central characters. Have your version of a Loki, which is an exception in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. Have a have a character a villain who you actually love to hate, and then you'll do so much better. But Suicide Squad, better than what people thought, but at the same time, keep in perspective that it's not the best movie of all time, and it could have been much, much better. It was fun, interesting. I would suggest going to see it, or watching it online, or renting it, whenever that's possible, and checking it out for yourself, because it's going to vary on an individual basis. Some people hate this movie, some people like it, some people are in the movie in the middle like me. So you'll never know till you try it. So I won't be like a critic who says don't go and see this movie, you'll waste your money. Go and see it. See which characters you like, which you don't. If you like the movie as a whole, if you don't as a whole, or if you're in the middle like me, that's fine. But I would encourage you to go out and see it though, somehow. But those are my thoughts on Suicide Squad. I wanted to focus GeekCast on it because it's a very, it's a point of contention within the comic book community, and I just thought giving my 2 cents on the whole entire movie and the different characters would be interesting and helpful to you guys as you decide whether you want to go see it. And if you want to share your thoughts, please share them in the comments. If you liked the movie, if you didn't, which characters you liked, which were well cast, you think, which you didn't. But make sure you like and subscribe for more content. Check out my other reviews. This week was the week of DC. I gave out all my DC reviews for The Flash and for Legends of Tomorrow. This has been Jonesy from Jonesy TV on the GeekCast. Check out the GeekCast every Saturday. We have it up. And we talk about fun stuff like this. Suicide Squad, sci-fi, television, fun stuff. So check out my other reviews. Like and subscribe. This is Jonesy from Jonesy TV signing off.